Greetings from Boston. My name is Aaron Knapp, and welcome back to Tennis Talk Daily. I hope everyone is doing well. We have some news to report, some matches that have been played, and some tournaments that have been won. We have a winner of the Estoril Open. We have a winner of the BMW Open in Munich. So I want to talk about those matches. I also want to talk about the Madrid Draw, which is out, and in fact, the tournament has begun. There's going to be a few interesting matches very early in the process at Madrid, but I also want to think about who might give the great Nadal trouble at Madrid on his home soil. It could be hard to give him trouble, but I wanted to talk about the possible contenders. Of course, Tsitsipas is in the tournament, and he will be one of those contenders, and I want to talk about his possibilities going forward. He's got a tough match coming out of the blocks, to be honest. So let's talk about that. Subscribe to the channel to get extensive coverage of the Madrid Open, and then, of course, Rome, and then the French Open, the ultimate clay court tournament. We're going to be covering them all in detail, to say nothing of grass. Well, if we're covering clay in detail, my gosh, we're going to be covering grass in excruciating detail. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Let's talk tennis. In one of the semifinals at the Estoril Open, the young American Frances Tiafoe faced the number 2 seed Pablo Carreño Busta, and I was somewhat surprised to see that Tiafoe fairly decisively disposed of Busta 6-2, 6-3, those big forehands of Tiafoe's playing a critical role in the win. In the other semifinal, Stefanos Tsitsipas, who had the tremendous run at Barcelona last week and who was able to oust the number 1 seed Kevin Anderson this week at the Estoril Open, faced Sousa, who is a Portuguese tennis player on his home soil. I gently predicted that Tsitsipas would win the match. I certainly believe he's capable of beating Sousa. The way it worked out is that Sousa edged Tsitsipas in a very close match. The final score, 6-4, 1-6, 7-6. The final set went to a breaker where I believe Sousa's relatively greater experience in the high-pressure situations probably redounded to his benefit. That set up a final between Sousa and Tiafoe today, and it was clear early on in this match that Tiafoe was not going to be able to bring the same high and consistent level of play that he brought to Busta. Meanwhile, Sousa played a very strong match, a very consistent match, a very committed match, and was able to prevail 6-4, 6-4 to take the title on his home soil with the crowd in his favor, and in fact with the president of Portugal sitting in box seats, at least in the semifinal. I'm not sure if he was there in the final. So congratulations to Sousa. In the Munich or BMW Open, Alexander Zverev was able to take care of Philippe Kohlschreiber 6-3, 6-3. Kohlschreiber looked a bit fatigued, a bit worn out today, and Zverev looks very strong heading into Madrid, and he has designs on that Madrid title, to be sure. Well, he's going to have some competition in some early rounds, and I'll get to that in a minute. But first, I want to go back to the Estoril Open matches involving Sousa. Sousa is a grunter, which is an understatement. He literally yells, he screams every time he hits the tennis ball. It was very distracting. Of course, there was absolutely no chance that the umpire would call a noise violation in Portugal, where they were, all rooting for Sousa. But I do think there were noise violations, particularly in the match with Tsitsipas, but also in the final today with Tiafoe. Very distracting, all of the grunting. The science shows that it really does put the opponent at a disadvantage. It deprives them of critical auditory stimuli with respect to the ball hitting the racket and really impairs the opponent's ability to predict where the ball is going to go. And that's over and above just the psychological impact of it and just the distraction of it. It's totally unnecessary, totally overdone. Grunting in tennis kind of started with Jimmy Connors, and it does seem to have a connection to the two-handers. I don't know of a lot of one-handers that are grunting on the tennis court, but then, of course, there are a number of women who scream and yell during the course of points on the tennis court. Martina Navratilova has called it a form of cheating, and there are a number of players and authorities who believe it's wrong and should be prohibited. Of course, Rafael Nadal has done the most to normalize this kind of disruptive conduct on the court, and Djokovic has done a bit of that himself. But I believe it's an issue. I believe it should be prohibited. I believe that there should be strict rules against it. Right now, the umpires have discretion to call noise violations, but there's a little too much room to move. I believe there should be a decibel limit to the screaming and yelling that occurs on the court. It's unnecessary and unsportsmanlike. Drop a comment on that issue. I'm interested in your views. Finally, the Madrid draw. Let's talk about a couple matchups that we could see this week. Nadal, I think, has an opening round match against Monfils, which could be quite interesting, although I would predict Nadal to prevail over the Frenchman. In the first quarter of the draw, it looks like we have a potential Nadal versus Thiem quarterfinal, unless Coric or potentially Busta could stop Thiem before getting to Nadal. In the second quarter, we have a potential Del Potro versus either Bautista Agut or Anderson in the quarterfinal, but Del Potro will have to get through Gasquet first, so we could see a Nadal versus Delpo semifinal at Madrid, which I will be highly anticipating. Delpo can do a job on Nadal, folks, so let's watch for that match for sure. In the third quarter, we have a potential quarterfinal between Goffin and Dimitrov, but Goffin has kind of a hard road before that quarterfinal. He'll have to possibly do business with Chung, Nishikori, or Djokovic, and for Dimitrov, he's going to have to deal with Raonic or Shapo and possibly Luca Pouille. So we'll see how that quarterfinal turns out. But at this point, it's kind of predicted to be Goffin versus Dimitrov. I think Dimitrov will probably be there. But when you got Djokovic in the mix, you got Nishikori in the mix, you got Chung in the mix on Goffin's side, I'm not sure it looks so good for him. But the opening round match between Nishikori and Djokovic should be really interesting. So that's coming up in a couple of days, and I'll comment on that. And in the final quarter, which is kind of the most interesting, it seems to be predicted that it'll be Isner versus Zverev in that final quarterfinal. But Zverev is going to have to deal with Stefanos Tsitsipas in Zverev's opening round match, assuming Tsitsipas can get through the qualifier. And Zverev might have to deal with Fognini as well, or Fognini. It's an interesting name to pronounce. But Zverev will potentially have some problems there, and in particular, this match with Tsitsipas, I think, is going to be a real test for both players. But again, you kind of have this real young teenager coming after Zverev there. They're both good on clay. That's going to happen in the next couple of days, folks. I think that's a very significant match, so I'll do detailed coverage on Zverev versus Tsitsipas, provided it happens. I would like to predict it's going to happen because I don't think that a qualifier is going to give Tsitsipas too many problems, but Tsitsipas has been playing a lot of tennis. He might need a little time off. I like Tsitsipas in Rome and at Roland Garros better than in Madrid, to be honest, because, of course, in Madrid, Nadal's going to have the crowd. But, again, Tsitsipas has kind of a tough road through this draw. Right out of the blocks, he's got to deal with Alexander Zverev, who's going to be on a wave of confidence coming out of Munich. But Tsitsipas is able to deal with Zverev. There's no question about it. So this is going to be a close match without question. And I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on it. And I will report to you some results and more commentary very, very soon. It's going to be an exciting week. I'm really looking forward to this. Subscribe to the channel. Give the video a thumbs up. I hope everyone is very well. Have a great remainder of the weekend, and I look forward to talking with you soon. Bye.